I can't believe my human counterpart is about to be on Thrive Loud for the third time. Either she's insane or really owes the host, Lou Diamond, a big favor. Not sure what to make of that one. In any event, today, the real Dr. Jill will be talking about me a lot. So I thought you should at least get a glimpse at my awesomeness before she steals the show.
Would you like to learn from those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level? Best-selling author of Speakeasy and master connector Lou Diamond is here to connect you to some of the most inspiring and amazing people on this planet. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to the most spectacular and fantastic episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond ever, at least up to this particular point. We've been thriving on this show for so long, and we've had some of the most amazing people that are thriving each and every day, and with no exception, that continues today because I have, for you, a wonderful human that thrives at the intersections of communication, education, technology, and business. She is the Chief Experience Officer of Render. She's also the Dynamic Communicator. And she just earned her doctorate at the University of South Florida Muma College of Business, researching the interactions of customer experience, B2B sales, and synthetic media. She's a Thrive Loud OG and has been rumored to have outdriven me on the golf course once or twice, or maybe every time. Thrive Loud listeners, I bring you Dr. Jill Schiefelbein. Jill, Dr. Jill, how are you today?
You know, it's a good day to thrive, Lou.
I love it. Listeners can tell I've known Jill for quite some time. I have seen different iterations, different versions of her evolve over the last several years. And the one thing I could always tell you is it always gets better, more amazing, and more incredible each and every time. And the fact that it's been so long since I've had her on the show to bring her back was like, oh my God, what is she doing? Because here's the deal. She's been very busy. And here's what I want to do, Jill. I want to do a little rewind to understand how the Dynamic Communicator made kind of a shift, if you would, to focus on some very, very cool stuff, which we're going to go too deep into in this pod. The floor is yours, Jill.
Well, thanks for having me and now my avatar, as it were, back for a third time. So am I the only one that holds the three-peat title here?
I defer to not answer that question.
Oh, man. Guess I'm not feeling that special today in any event.
You're in select company, Dr. Jill.
Well, no, that's good. And it's so fun to hear that. But yeah, it's been a wild ride over the past, we've known each other since 2015. So The past 8 years, from really focusing on building the, boutique communication strategy business that I've had, since May 2015, full time, because I was a professor at Arizona State before that. And then in the past couple of years, not going and doing away with that, but bringing on something else that I find very exciting that is really a complement to what I was already doing, because I would do a lot of communication, technology strategy, digital strategy, messaging, that type of thing in my work. But now with AI, generative AI, synthetic media, there's a whole new avenue of communication possibilities have opened up. And for over 2 years now, that has become a big part of my life. I'm still doing all the keynotes, trainings, and negotiations, navigating difficult conversations, persuasion, etc., keynoting that I've been doing for years and years and years. But now there is this additional element of technology that is lesser known, that honestly intimidates some people, and that needs to be demystified and then also strategized. And I'm in a happy place doing it.
So for the listeners who did not get a chance to see it, you got a chance to hear it. There was this incredible avatar of Dr. Jill that was on the program in the video, which you can go check. We'll put all the links so you can check out all of this stuff and all the things to her in all the social notes. And to say it's real and is amazing. Synthetic media has taken incredible leaps and bounds to somebody that's been involved with synthetic media for a very long time in a very interesting form and all the different forms that it's been in. Let's talk about the advancements that are only getting more and more real-like, and what that's meant to you, and specifically the work that you do and how people connect and communicate.
Yeah, it's wild. And the idea, like ChatGPT recently turned 1, right? Like this is where we're at today. And so when you say, like, I've been in the synthetic media space for over 2 years, that does make me kind of an OG in the synthetic media space, which is wild when you think about it. But, at Render, the company where I'm a partner and also chief experience officer, we create hyper realistic custom avatars of people. And you have now access to tons of different stock avatars in multiple platforms, from Veed to Vimeo to Adobe to Canva and beyond. These stock avatars are integrated there, and stock avatars are similar to stock photos, right? If we want to make an analogy, as in, let's be honest, you don't know where they've been. You don't know what pages they've been on. You don't know their browser history. So whether you want to use them or not to be communicating for your business is, a risk that you can choose to take or not. So, I say it salaciously, but in all seriousness, there are big instances of, stock avatars being used for fake news, being used for malicious content, being used in many different situations. And if you're a business owner, from a communicative perspective, you have to understand that communication history plays into every single transaction that we have with people internally in our organizations, with external customers, with external potential customers. And so if you're going to use a stock avatar, for example, or a stock photo, going back to when those were all the rage, you risk that someone else has seen that same photo or seen that same avatar personality in another context. So if you're trying to, for example, sell life insurance, which is a pretty, serious thing, and it's sometimes difficult conversations to have when you're selling that, and you're using a stock avatar to communicate and to train or provide information, yet the person you're trying to sell to has seen that stock avatar in contexts that were used for comedy and humor, that's not going to go well for your business. So when the idea of custom cloning, if you will, custom hyper-realistic avatars came into play, I was an incredibly early adopter of this, jumped in. My business partners, John and Moki, were starting to play around with it. I was, paid customer number 2 originally back in 2021 for this. And looking at it and seeing the potential for being able, as a business owner, as a content provider, as a leader, as a consultant that goes into teams, where I need to communicate more frequently in a more personalized and customized way to people, but don't have the bandwidth as an individual to be constantly making all of these different videos or being in person. This channel of communication really revolutionizes the way that we can have meaningful touch points with our clients. And that is not to say that it replaces the real Jill on video or the real Jill in person, but it now adds an additional level of richness with which we can communicate that can serve our audiences, our clients, our consumers better. And that's also what I've been researching for my doctorate the past couple of years.
And in a perfect segue with that, and this is really interesting, and that is, to your point, it makes perfect sense that if there's a little bit more of a personalization when you have a familiar face that's the real individual versus the stock avatar or stock photo that you see. Yet, whether we look at those avatars and want to learn from them or want to buy from them or be educated by them in certain ways, that's the real question at hand here, is what is replacing the real Jill, Dr. Jill, or the avatar of Dr. Jill, or which we did because I had one of these avatars made as well. We've got the Lou and Louvatar. But when you have those type of characters, do we learn from them? Will we accept them? Will people look at the avatars and actually give it the credibility and trust that is required in a lot of the lines of business that people can work with? And I think this is at the root of a lot of what you was in your doctorate.
It is. And these are all really important questions for me, because that Jill Schiefelbein can figure out ways to leverage this strategically in my business is great. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone can do it or that the results would hold similarly in other instances. So what I studied in my doctorate and what I did my research, the experimentation, the dissertation on is, okay, we have real Jill on video. We have Jill's avatar on video, and we have Jill's avatar who tells people up front that she's an avatar. And that's a whole topic we can get into, Lou, on disclosure, and would really like to get into it. But squirrel moment, let me come back to the research. Which is taking those three things. I wanted to know if they performing the exact same script. And to that point, I created this avatar the same day that I created, real Jill filming this script, avatar Jill having the same script, etc. I wanted to see how would they perform. And I got hundreds of respondents to not only complete the study, but they were actually videoed while doing the study, which means I have biometric and eye motion analytics of 300 people watching this video in all of these categories to see biometrically and objectively how they respond versus subjectively through, survey data. And so what I did in these three different groups is I looked at questions on engagement. There's a scientifically validated scale around engagement that was used. There is also a scientifically validated scale about trust, and specifically how people examine trust in digital content. So very useful for this situation. And then I had some quiz-like questions, information retention questions to see how do people actually retain information from these forms of technology compared to their human counterparts. And over this, there were some fascinating results. The top result that blew my mind away, I don't know if maybe it's a top result, but one of the top results is that there were no statistically significant differences in self-reported engagement or trust across any of the three. And what that means, for those not versed in statistics, means that this couldn't have just occurred by chance. So any of the differences that did occur, so if it was like on a scale of 1 to 10, here was a 10 and here was a 9, there was no proof that it didn't just occur by chance. So what that means to me is, okay, people do trust these forms of content. People do engage with these forms of content. But the real proof for me was in the proverbial pudding, which was, but did they actually learn from it, right? Did they actually retain information? Now, this was a micro-learning content piece. It's a 2-minute informational video. There was nothing on the background. In fact, there were no pieces of art like behind me now. It was just kind of a white wall, right? I wanted to test the purity of the technology because learning, as hundreds of studies show, is done better digitally when you not only have a talking head, but have other visual impetus, reminders of concepts or text on screen or things like that. So I know that that's going to create better learning. So I wasn't testing that. I was testing the purity of the technology. And in doing so, there was zero difference between real Jill and avatar Jill in learning. In fact, the average quiz score for people watching my avatar was like 0.1 points higher than watching real me. So my ego was bruised.
Well, it wasn't bruised. I think the reality is it says something, right? It does say something that that either we're receptive to understanding, to relating to what this avatar can be, and understand that it can work. I think maybe that's the other part, because a lot of people, to your earlier point about those stock avatars and what those might be, like there's some brand perceptions that we might have by one of those avatars that might have showed up in something sketchy or questionable. Yet when we have a person that is the real person who's dealing this, and if you think about this, listeners, if you're the head of sales of a large organization and you're communicating messages to your team, or you are giving a training inside of your organization in an e-learning environment, think of the potential and the cost savings and time savings that you can have by utilizing this incredible avatar technology, by creating scripts that can be communicated real and sound real and all of that, which is where I was going to segue to this. It isn't just about how it looks, but a lot of it has to do with the combination of how it looks and sounds. Can you provide a little bit of a behind the scenes here of, in the world of synthetic media, and in making making the avatar as human as possible is kind of important in how well we'll adapt and listen and trust it.
It is. So before I go into kind of like the how-to process of it, a couple of things that I think are important, especially for people who are only listening to the audio portion of this right now. The audio, yes, important. And you heard my avatar a little bit earlier in a very, very short snippet. But the hyper-realism of these things, to the point where that second group of 100 so people who watched me as an avatar for 2 minutes straight with nothing behind me, when asked at the very end of the study, did you just watch a video of a real person, or did you watch a video of the hyper-realistic avatar representing that real person? So even I kind of thought that was a leading question of it, right? But I couldn't find a better way to, ask it. 67% believed it was still a real human. Wow. After sitting there with it for 2 minutes. And that group again scored an average of, I think it was like 81% on a quiz, which for any information test in almost any field is definitely considered passing, right? Especially for internal training, et cetera. So when you're looking at it that way, it's like, okay, yes, it's real. Now there's more studies that need to be done. I already have many in the works. We can get into that later if it's relevant. But what's really important from a communicative perspective here is we know scientifically through numerous studies that people learn better from people they know, like, and trust. So when it comes down to, yes, it's not real Jill giving them this informational content, but instead of some random actor, the avatar representing a hyper-realistic version of the person they already know, like, and trust, is a good thing, like a really good thing. And when you're doing this, you have the opportunity to add your social presence in places where you otherwise wouldn't have, where it may have just been audio, where it may have just been text, where maybe it was only an image. But now even studies in sales, studies in politics, studies in assimilation, studies in team unity and bonding, they all go to show over hundreds and hundreds of studies that if we can find a way to personalize and customize communication and give people choice in how they consume content, all of those things lead to positive benefits, whether it's more sales, whether it's customer loyalty, whether it's higher rate of referral, all of these different things. These three variables continually come up in scientific studies in multiple areas as being important. But why don't we do it as business owners? Why, for example, when a new hire comes on board in your company of, 5,000 employees and you're hiring 10 new people, a week, I'm just throwing out numbers here. Are you, as like the leader of this company, not sitting down and making personalized videos or personalized meetings with each person? Well, it's time. We don't have that time. But now, if you could, let's say CEO Jill Schiefelbein at the Dynamic Communicator welcomes Lou Diamond personally via avatar, says it's an avatar too. It's like, Lou, I'm so happy you just joined the team here at the Dynamic Communicator. You've probably seen a video, of me before, and obviously you got to meet me during the interview process or whatever it may be, right? But I just want to say a formal, through my avatar, welcome to the team, and I really cannot wait to get to see you in person again when, XYZ is coming up, whatever it may be. It's just, again, that personalized touch, that social presence, and then the same thing if you're selling. You and I both work a lot with sales teams. Let's say you're in B2B sales, which is my niche area of expertise, and you are selling to, let's say, travel advisors, right? So you're a cruise line who's trying to sell to travel advisors, so they sell to their clients. What you do then is now you have advisors who sell to multi-generational families. You have advisors who sell to solo travelers. You have advisors who sell to families with young children. Well, you can put the same base piece of training out that maybe your company marketing team spent thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars creating great. But now, Lou, as the rep for this area, you create 4 or 5 different customized videos that say, hey, Jill, I know your agency works a lot with multi-generational clients. So in this training that you are about to view from Cruise Line X, really focus on the segment between minutes 10 and 20, because I think this will speak so highly to what you're able to sell to your clientele. Now, me as an advisor goes and listens to this, meticulously produced training in a different way, because there's a personal and customized touch that set that expectation.
Yeah. And the thought that always goes by me is a lot of the content and the training materials for certain industries, pharmaceutical, you can go down where there's lots of regulations and lawyers and people have combed through the content. Just think about the effectiveness and now being able to utilize avatars to deliver it this way. You've dropped the breadcrumbs on this and you addressed it in the last part and in the message to me. Let's talk about the importance of identifying that this is the digital representation or digital avatar of this particular person and how important that is along the way. Because as you can tell, you get this technology in the wrong hands of some people. Some people might be able to pull a fast one on some folks, but also the importance of developing that trust and importance. You talked about, like, you could make a whole podcast about this in the beginning. I do want to hit it. Talk about how important this particular aspect is in all the types of synthetic media we have.
Yeah, I mean, disclosure is huge. And a couple of different notes on this. First, number one, it's really people decide how they want to use technology, right? People decide how they want to communicate. And what's really fascinating to me, I want to pick up on something that you said is like, if people can be duped or if people can, steal technology or whatever. The honest truth is, if you have 10 seconds of audio and a single picture of you out there, anyone can deep fake you with the knowledge to know how to do it. So I'm not trying to terrify you, but people often are like, well, I'm not going to get cloned because then people can use it. I'm like, if people were really going to use and leverage something like this about you, they probably already can. So that's the nature of the world we live in right now. And deep fakes have been around heavily since 2017, influencing elections. This is in all parts of the world. They've been used to shame people, to threaten people, a whole host of nefarious things. And they've also been used for a whole host of amazing things to bring opportunities to life. And so a deep fake is the nefarious use. Synthetic media, when you are owning your IP, you're owning your digital likeness, is a very different thing. And on October 30th, President Biden released the executive order on, I want to get it right here, safe, secure, and trustworthy artificial intelligence. Like everything in government, it's a mouthful. But what's really important on this, especially to me and what I do, is in Section 4, it's all about ensuring safety and security of AI technology. And a major theme in this, and there's 8 different points under the section, is around disclosure. And how are people going to be mandated to disclose or not mandated to disclose? If it's your own digital likeness, should you have to be mandated to disclose it or not? Right? There's a whole host of issues and considerations that go into it. But what's a challenge for businesses right now, and this is something that I studied extensively during my dissertation. Another study is currently in the works right now, and I hope to have it wrapped up before year end this year to be able to advise on AI disclosure in a better way, is that because of things like algorithmic aversion and computer-based bias, even if, for example, a chatbot can be more effective than a human bot in answering a question, if we know it's a bot beforehand, we rate it lower. And it impacts what we do afterwards. And there are lots of studies on this in my literature review, of course, right? Academic style. You have to read these hundreds and hundreds of studies, and disclosure is met with varying points of pros and cons. And what it comes down to, though, if you don't disclose as a business and then people later find out, your sentiment scores, your net promoter scores, all of that plummet. So to me, as a business owner, the risk of not disclosing is not worth it at all, even though I know I may not be able to get as effective as I would otherwise. I mean, there are studies in all different areas where, a chatbot was 4 times more effective in securing purchases from people than an actual human salesperson in certain situations. Yet, as soon as they knew they were interacting with a bot, that plummeted. So what's happening right now is with hyper-realistic avatars and really amazing forms of synthetic media, the human population doesn't realize that it's fake at this point in time as a whole, right? As a whole. Again, 67% sat and watched enough to score an 81% on a quiz, me as an avatar and a white background. And 67%, when given the choice, was it a human or an avatar, still chose human. This was huge. But that same group of people when then presented with the information that what they actually watched was a hyper-realistic avatar and they were educated about what those are, I went from 81% positive sentimentality about avatars in my first group that watched the real me, 50% positive sentimentality based on commentary, open-ended on people who watched the avatar that disclosed it was an avatar, 84% negative. So you're like plummeting in the group that watched the avatar but then felt duped. And you, as a business, whether or not this becomes real in the executive world, as a business, I do not think you can afford to take that risk. So the onus now on leaders in this space, in my capacity and people doing research that is not just, oh, let's throw some crappy survey out there and figure out what it's doing, but that follows scientific principles, is what are the most effective ways to disclose to mitigate ill impacts. And so I'm actually taking the exact same content that I did in my dissertation. So we have some, apples to oranges in a way, if you will, and doing it with 5 different styles of disclosure versus non-disclosure to see how that plays out in the same areas, again, of engagement, of trust, and information retention. Because if I can find a more effective way to disclose, that is a massive value to, not only our customers at Render, but to me being able to advise any company that is communicating using generative AI in any space.
Listeners know that I love to steal things from Jill. One of the things that she did really well in one of the Jill avatar messages was, "Hi, this is Jill's avatar. Jill's really busy right now delivering a presentation live at this thing, but let me tell you what I'm going to do it." And it was a way of clarifying that this was the avatar, but also explaining what the real Jill was doing. And I've used it in the same sense. Hey, Lou's off on a meeting right now and he can't be here, but let me tell you about some of the things that are going on. Spectacular way of utilizing it, giving the credibility, addressing it, and something about that breaking whatever wall, I guess that would be the 5th wall, in trying to get that, to show that the avatar is relating to its real person, knows that it's an avatar and is communicating to this other person, is a brilliant, one of the many ways, I guess, in disclosure, which is great. I couldn't agree with you more that how important it is, and specifically on that trust part. And thanks for sharing that stat about once they felt duped, what a drop it is, because you're right, whether it's net promoter scores, any of the trust factors that we're looking for, what a bottom out you would have, because that's the worst feeling in the world, is to feel like you were let on and then it drops off a cliff. I want to pull the curtain back here and shift a little bit more to Jill, specifically Dr. Jill. And I want to ask this question. Real loyal Thrive Loud listeners, and we're talking the real loyal ones here, know that our first Thrive Loud interview, Jill and I consciously decided we wanted to do it, and we went to a restaurant in New York City, had French fries and Manhattans, and it was ambient restaurant noise, which, by the way, has been used in other episodes and other background noise of recordings that I've created out of the studio, because it was so unbelievably effective. The clinking and clanging of noise and buzz was really cool. We had a great conversation at that particular point. And one of the things that we covered was that you had left the world of academia and went into the world of business world, and had been doing it for very successfully, and created your own business and your own company and doing incredible stuff. What was the yearning and callback to earning this PhD and degree? This is legitimately a question I wanted to know, because I just, obviously, for those who can tell, her passion for this topic is through the roof, and it's amazing. And she's so great with all of in mixing and mashing it together, and also clearly explaining how effective it can be. But I would love to know, inside your little noggin there, what drew you back in? What drew you back to wanting to earn this PhD?
The honest, unfiltered answer, and I think anyone who goes for a doctorate degree and doesn't have this as their honest, unfiltered answer is full of it, is ego. Period. End of story. There are many reasons. So but if you don't have the ego in it, you're not going to succeed in it. It's a massive undertaking alongside, when I first started running one business, now that I was in the middle of it, running my business and then becoming a partner in another business and building up a startup and reducing my business to 50%. I mean, there's a lot going on, not to mention like health and medical complications that come up in life. So it's like, why the heck do you do it? Well, you have to have the ego for it. and your ego needs to want it, because if not, there's really no point. I mean, there's many, I can justify business reasons for it, but if you're really not in it, you're not going to do it. The real reason I started it though, and why I started it when I started it, I left the academic space, and I jokingly call myself a recovering academic a lot, because I was told when I was 27 and was building the starts of what is now the probably most well-known public university online campus at Arizona State in the country. Like, I sat on the board that helped build some of that up. At 27, I'm told you have one more promotion ahead of you unless you get a doctorate. I'm like, so I just brought in millions here. I did not get a massive raise. Like, peace out. Like, I set my exit strategy and I bounced, because it was ridiculous. And within the first year of being on my own, combined, supplemented with adjunct teaching, because I wanted to keep my foot in that door, because, there's some level of risk that you need to have, is, within my first year, I made more than I did at the university. And it was like, okay, this is ridiculous. So then started going up there. But I have always had a respect for the rigor that goes into academic research. I think their distribution methods are crap, and I have voiced this many, many times. I think they're antiquated in the way they go about a lot of things. But when I decided that the next iteration of my business was going to be creating a scientifically validated, licensable assessment, a saleable asset in my business, around persuasive tendency. So that was where I was going. I said, I can either pay $250,000 to a research firm to do it at the level of rigor, or I can do it myself and get a degree. So I went in doing it myself. So I'm studying neuroscience, decision-making, to add into the different metrics for factor analysis, for persuasive tendencies, trying to distill it down. Okay, total nerd geek out stuff here. And then, 8 months into this stupid program, not stupid program, it's a great program, but this program, I discover hyper-realistic avatars. And I'm like, well, shit. I think this is what I need to research now. And, a year later, I become a partner in this company because of the use cases and the strategies. And what I do feel is my true ability to integrate communication, technology, and education successfully, and then add the strategy on top of it. And it all came from my desire when I was a little girl to better paint. And I lived in a tiny town in Kansas where I had talent in art, was winning national competitions, and my mom's like, you really love doing this. Like, here, let's get you an art teacher. About 6 months to a year, I don't remember the exact timeline, but into it, she moves. And what are you going to do in the late 80s, early 90s in a tiny town in Kansas to learn how to physically paint? Like, the best I could do was go to the library and read different things. And then maybe there were some VHS tapes. I mean, Bob Ross and I had an intimate relationship for a good portion of my childhood, right? And I would try to, happy clouds and happy trees. And I mean, I was not, but it wasn't good. There was no one to show me, right? I couldn't see a video with a clear demonstration. And let's be honest, VHS tapes quality, you couldn't see clearly then anyway. So when I discovered technology in the early 2000s, and started learning about online courses and what they could be, I taught myself some basic programming. I started building these things because, to me, providing access to meaningful experiences, educational and otherwise, through technology can democratize a whole lot, not only in society, but then not put people at a disadvantage just because of where you happen to be born, or where you happen to live, or what disability you may have, or a temporary medical paralysis, or needing to be a caretaker, or a single parent, whatever it is. And for me, the next technology that came along that I was an early adopter of that did that was Zoom. Right. We all know how that went. I'm still pissed at my dad this day for when they had their IPO for not buying a crap ton like I advised him. And I remind him as much as I can. At the time, I was like my first year in New York City, poor as heck, because, sustainable in Phoenix, Arizona is poor in New York City and Manhattan. I didn't have that income, so dang him. But then the next thing was the synthetic media and these hyper-realistic avatars. And I truly believe they have the ability to not only be effective as forms of communication, but to truly change how we can personalize and customize and create better experiences for our customers, for our audiences. And it's my ambition and goal to find the absolute best ways possible to do that benefit all involved. It's not a replacement for the real you. It never will be a replacement for a real you, but it allows you to add your social presence and meaning and personalization, customization, and choice when you couldn't otherwise.
Thrive Loud listeners, this is why she rocks. This is why Dr. Jill is here, because she's thriving loud every minute of the day. Let's do the admin part of the show, Jill. Share with the listeners all the places people can find you, learn about whatever is going on, whatever you want to promote. This is your moment to share. We will put it on the show notes, but it gets more engagement when they hear it from you.
The real thing is interact with me on social media at Dynamic Jill. It's the easiest way to find me, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And it's really, I like having conversations about this. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Like, you want to get a custom avatar? Great. I know the best people in the world to do it, because we are the only people in the world that can integrate and shoot you to produce an avatar in the 4 leading avatar platforms. Best in class in everything. So that's our thing at Render. But talk to me if you want that. But really, it's, if you're looking for strategy to understand this better, I love demystifying it for people. My heart is in education and communication and technology. So however I can share is great. But we do have, and I love doing different webinars on these topics. And once a month, I do a 30-minute webinar on a topic involving a specific type of use case in synthetic media. So if you want to know about that, again, just reach out to me on social media. You can go to rendermedia.ai and sign up for the list. You'll hear about it that way too. But however you want to learn, I am here to help facilitate that. And this space is only just beginning, and it's so fun to be a pioneer in yet another, intersecting area.
We're going to go down Fun Street, and Fun Street has changed on Thrive Loud since, I don't even know if we had Fun Street initially when Jill was on the first time. So this will be.
Oh, we did Sandlot.
That's right. We talked Sandlot about the movie, but here's what's changed. Diana Kander was on the program and obviously got me a speakeasy shot glass. So what we did was we created basically the speakeasy pub crawl down Fun Street, where basically I get to ask questions to our lovely guest who will provide us with amazing answers. But before I get to the little speed round there, I have a great question, because Jill has been incredibly busy for the last several years. And in fact, jokingly, she had said, she goes, like, I sent her a link to one of the episodes of a podcast, and she's like, you think I have time to listen to a podcast? And I was joking with her. Is there some guilty pleasure in whatever very little free time you have, or maybe something you watched on planes? Was it a streaming show or something you listened to, music or something that was like your go-to to just turn it off and just chill out? Was there one of those? Maybe it's a program, a movie, or whatever. I'd love to hear what that would be, what it was.
Well, according to Spotify, it is sitting and listening to Hippie Sabotage, my #1 band of the year on Spotify. And most people are going to be like, who the heck are they? So now have fun with it. Get inside my mind. Hippie Sabotage, a glass of wine or bourbon, and crochet. That is my unwind time. And I will do that on my couch or on planes, for that matter.
Is there a particular song that Hippie Sabotage that you like more than not? Any particular? I love Hippie Sabotage.
Let's see. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I can't think of an exact song. Okay. Drawing a complete blank right now. But I love their vibe, and through them, I got introduced to like Dennis Lloyd, who I also really like. And it's a very chill vibe. So whether it's a nice Italian red wine or some really good bourbon and crocheting, like your grandmother did, I crochet like a ninja, and it's amazing.
I think we just titled the episode, Jill, she crochets like a ninja. All right, we're going to do the speed.
That won't be good. That won't be good for search engine optimization. No, you know that.
We know that. Okay. So we're going to do the speed round here. I'm going to ask you a question. First thing that comes to your mind. These are things that lift you up, motivate you, make you feel good, basically make you thrive. Here we go. Favorite food that's not a dessert?
Nachos.
Favorite dessert?
I'm not a huge dessert person. Caramel apples, like a real OG, only caramel, no nuts, no chocolate, no sprinkles, no BS. A real OG caramel apple.
An activity you wish you did more of?
Sitting and crocheting. Actually, seeing my niece and nephew. That would be the #1.
An activity you wish you did less of?
Sitting at my desk.
An activity that's relatively new to you, that you've recently tried, that you like so much you want to tell everybody else to try?
HotWorks. It's this workout chain where you work out in these tiny, crowded rooms at about 130 degrees in a sauna, and it's amazing.
This is the toughest next question I would ever have to ask Jill. I have to give the listeners a background. Jill had purchased one of those Away pink carry-on travel bags. And every time she passed through or landed at a specific airport, she put the airport code in letters on the bag. I have a picture of one of these. I'm probably there. It is. There's her picture. She's showing in there. Look at all the different places that are there. So normally at this point in the time, I say, if I could snap my fingers and Jill could be anywhere in the world, where would she be? What I really want to ask is, where haven't you been? What is there a destination on that's going to fit onto that bag or a new bag at this point because you're running out of space that you want to go to that's still on the worldwide travel list for Jill Schiefelbein?
So many. I've only been to 50.
Is there like a top three?
I've only been to 51 countries. There's like 196, depending on what list you have. So like, there's so much more to explore. I'm going gorilla trekking in Uganda in 2024. So that is pretty dang exciting to me. But I want to hit my 7th continent, which is not Antarctica. That was delightful. But I want to hit New Zealand, Australia, that whole area.
Oceania. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So that is definitely top. The gorilla trekking has been high on my list. Seeing the Northern Lights, I don't even care where I do it, but seeing them, like, really, really good view up there. And then not necessarily places, but experiences. Polar bears would be next. So I've done like the African safari a couple times, the Antarctic safari. We'll have the gorilla one, then polar bears.
I love it. I love that I get to say this again on the show. Dr. Jill Schiefelbein, congratulations on earning that title. As a very good friend, truly proud of you. I know how much effort you put into it. As somebody that's been overlapping in our business worlds, I'm even more amazed at the stuff that you guys are doing at Render and what you're doing. And it's so much fun. By the way, we will put a link. You got to watch the real Jill next to the avatar Jill next to each other. It will blow your mind. It's really amazing stuff. You'll see it from the beginning of the thing. And thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud again.
My pleasure, but please, like, don't put me now next to my avatar because she always wakes up like that and looks amazing. I show up however I can on any given day. So.
I think you show up pretty gosh darn well. That's what I'll tell you.
We do the best we can. Thank you, Lou. It was good to talk.
To all the listeners out there, thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep moving onward and upward, and remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.